Greetings, I'm the Bulgarian Troglodyte. Today I'm gonna suggest to you some great movie double bills. There's even one TV show double bill at the end. But I did a video like this back in December 2023. So this is kind of a part 2 to that video. And I just briefly checked that video so that I wouldn't have any of the same films. Although it was a 50-minute video, so I didn't actually watch the video, but I tried to skip around and see that I wouldn't have the same films, but there is a small chance that I will talk about the same double bill or some of the same films here, but hopefully there aren't any same films here. And in that video, I think I had like 20 double bills, but now I won't have as many of them. Yeah, so hopefully this isn't a 50-minute long video, but let's get right onto it. So we're gonna start with a French art house double bill. So we have a film called Céline from Jean-Claude Brisseux from the early 90s. And then we have possibly my favorite Eric Romer film, Four Adventures of Reinette and Mirabelle from 1987. But I actually just rewatched Céline on January and I absolutely loved it on my second viewing. This is one of my absolute favorite French films. And Brissot is a director that I don't know beyond this film, so I don't know whether he made any other good films, but this is a great film. It's about these two women. One of them is a nurse, and one of them has just got separated from her boyfriend, and then she becomes suicidal. But then this nurse and this suicidal girl kind of live together in this house in the countryside, and then the nurse is kind of able to gradually heal this suicidal person. So it's all about their platonic friendship. So it's a very beautiful movie with very universal themes about life and depression and human connection and things like that. And to me, it has that kind of classic French kind of literary quality that when you like look at the uh, visuals of the film and stuff, it kind of reminds me of some of the French literature that I have read because I'm a very kind of visual reader that I get very strong images when I read. So it kind of reminds me of my experiences when I've read some French classics. And this also has a bit of a hypnotic quality to it. And the French countryside looks really beautiful in it. The two women give great performances, and it's a very beautiful movie. Sadly, it's not very accessible often that it can be hard to find in through like official means. But I believe I checked that this was also available in the Internet Archive website. And I want to particularly recommend this to my friend Tony because I think he would absolutely love this because it's a very Romerian film. Yeah, and I think I even mentioned it to him the last time we talked on like early January. But yeah, I would love to see him watch this and hear what he thinks about this. But again, the other film, Four Adventures of Reinette and Mirabelle, I think would go really well with Céline because, like I said, Céline is a very Romerian film, and this film is also about a friendship between two young women. And stylistically, these films are pretty similar. That they have like fairly naturalistic cinematography, although I think Céline has a bit more of that kind of hypnotic quality to it and even a very slight surreal quality to it that maybe this film doesn't have, but I think overall, stylistically, the films are very similar. But of course, I think for Adventures of Reinette and Mirabelle, it's a bit of a, I think, happier film all the way through because this doesn't have that very depressing element to it. And I actually just noticed that in the cast, we have Jean-Claude Brisseux, the director of this film. And by the way, I didn't notice that when I chose these films. So funny coincidence, actually. So I guess due to that, they are even a better double bill. Yeah, but we have these kind of again a few different vignettes in this film, and I think to me this film is mostly very charming and fun to watch, and a very kind of comfort style movie, even though obviously it's an art house movie, but art house movies can be comfort watches as well. If you didn't know, I think many people think that all art house films are just like, yeah, you sit there very stoically and very seriously and you just watch them and never have fun, but you can have fun with art house films, both with the more serious ones, but also with ones like this that are very charming and beautiful. And yeah, I really love the two characters in both of these films. Yeah, but I think maybe start with Céline and then watch Reinette and Mirabelle after, because this is a bit of a happier watch, I would say. Although it has like, I guess, a bit like sadder moments as well. But yeah, this film is maybe a bit more low key in the way that it doesn't maybe tackle those bigger themes that Céline does. Yeah, this is a very light-hearted movie, but again, Céline, while it has depressing moments about suicide and depression, things like that, but it also has more optimistic and hopeful moments in it and very beautiful moments in it. But I would love to see more people discover this film, Céline. It's not talked about that much, even though I think it's a just a five-star movie, a great French classic, and I think many people would like this one if they gave it a go. Then the second double bill is a Japanese double bill. We have Kiyoshi Kurosawa's Tokyo Sonata, which I just rewatched a couple days ago. Then we have Hirokazu Koreeda's Like Father, Like Son, which I have done podcast episode on. So if you want to hear more analysis on this film, definitely check out that podcast episode. But this was the first Kiyoshi Kurosawa film I ever watched. I'm pretty sure, and it took me quite a while to rewatch it. But I have wanted to rewatch it for quite a while, but this actually blew me away even more on this rewatch. Yeah, it's about this family, and this is the father of the family in the middle of the shot, and he loses his job. He had a good kind of upper middle class administrative job, but then when he loses his job, he struggles to find another job. And obviously, this film came out in 2008, so that was the time when the financial crisis started. So this was actually a very timely movie around that time due to that fact, and I think it's very timely still to this day, as again the work life has changed a lot. It has become more and more harder to find good jobs, and also even if you find a good job, it's harder to support yourself. And for example, it's really hard for people to buy houses anymore when everything has become so much more expensive, while wages haven't increased as much. So this is a very kind of timely movie, still like 16 or 17 years after it came out. But yeah, so it explores this family dynamic and then kind of the work life of this man for the most part. But then we also get glimpses of these other characters, like for the example, the boy starts playing piano in secret, and then the mother has a kind of a weird encounter with the Kochi Yakusho character. I don't want to spoil it because it kind of really changes the vibe of the movie when that happens. But we see that all of these characters are trying to find meaning in their lives. They are trying to find a path forward, and they are trying to find happiness, and they are trying to just again find what they want to do and what they can do in life. And there are lots of toxic dynamics in between the characters, especially the father, as the movie goes along, becomes quite toxic, although part of it is kind of understandable due to his situation. Yeah. And it explores again also keeping secrets from your family, as kind of all of the characters keep secrets from each other. Yeah. But it's also very nicely shot, as Kiyoshi Kurosawa films are. This doesn't have as much of that kind of horror and thriller element as many of his films have, but it has a bit of that too at times in the film. But it's a very enjoyable film. It even has some dark humor, I would say. even though the themes of it are very dark, especially as I think many of us can relate to these types of themes, both the dysfunctional family element, but also the difficulties in your professional life and things like that can be very relatable for people. But I think this is one of Kurosawa's best films. I think it currently is my second favorite after Charisma. Yeah, such a great movie. But the reason why I picked Like Father, Like Son to be the double bill with Tokyo Sonata is because this also explores those types of family issues. And also here we can have two families and they had their kids at the same time, but the babies were swapped at the hospital when they were born. So then the children lived with the wrong families, but then later on they find out that that was the case, and then they need to figure out whether they need to or whether they want to exchange the kids to their kind of the biological families. And this explores the nature versus nurture element, but also these family dynamics and also the concept of love. That is it something that you can only love people you are related to, or does the blood or the genetics really matter at all, or whether it's more just the connections that you make with other people. But yeah, the family dynamics are what I think would fit with Tokyo Sonata. And this also explores class a bit, as one of these families is a bit more of a kind of a working class type of family, and the other one is more of a upper middle class family, as this guy here is an architect. So obviously these types of class elements and the work life element was in Tokyo Sonata even more so than in this film, but here we also have a bit of that kind of class analysis. Yeah, but this is a very beautiful and a very humanist film. Stylistically, the films are a bit different. Again, I think Tokyo Sonata has that very dark humor, like I said, and it's a darker movie in general than Like Father, Like Son. But I think also both of the films have quite beautiful, very humane endings to them that are very emotional. So even in that way, they would fit well together. And of course, we have two great contemporary Japanese directors and very essential Japanese directors. So I think that would also make them really fit together. Of course, there's only 5 year gap between these films, so I think there was a 5 year gap between Céline and Four Adventures of Reinette and Mirabelle too. But yeah, definitely check these out. And again, we did a podcast episode on this, so if you want to learn more about it, you can check that out. And we of course talked about Kiyoshi Kurosawa on a podcast recently too, so you can check that out too, even though it wasn't this film. Yeah. Then we have Pastoral to Die in the Country from Shuchi Terayama and City of Pirates from Raul Ruiz. So this has been on my mind lately a lot as we just did a podcast on it, and this time when I watched it for the third time, it just blew me away even more than it has before. And you can watch this film on YouTube for free, or Rare Film website for free, and I think even at the Internet Archive website for free. So no excuses not to watch it. And if you check out the podcast episode, like there is a link in the description to this film if you want to watch it. I would highly recommend it to everybody. But the reason why I have these together is just as they are both kind of more avant-garde experimental films where I think the visuals are to a large degree the main event or the main attraction. Although this time when I watched Pastoral to Die in the Country, I got the narrative better than I had beforehand. So now I think that yeah, the narrative is very important in this film. So the themes are very important, but it's still a very visually driven film. And if you look at these two shots, so we have this shot here, very interesting color palette here. But you can see here that we have these types of interesting colors in this Raul Ruiz film as well. Yeah, but this one is maybe even more incomprehensible than Pastoral to Die in the Country, because Pastoral to Die in the Country, it has again the narrative, and it wasn't maybe as quite as complex the narrative as I used to think now that I have seen it 3 times, but and it's more comprehensible than this because I don't even know whether this has like what this film wants to say and yeah what it is about. But I just love this film so much because it's just so beautiful and hypnotic in terms of the aesthetic. Yeah, but yeah, I just picked these together due to the some of the similarities in the aesthetic and as both of them are experimental avant-garde films. So if you want to learn about that side of filmmaking, I think this would be a great double bill. And I think this is also available on YouTube, although it's pretty bad quality. And I think you can dig for a better copy online because I managed to find a better copy like years ago. Although I'm not sure where you can find that copy anymore, but yeah. But yeah, great films. Some of my both are in my top 50 of all time, and I think Pastoral to Die in the Country is even on my maybe top 30, top 20 now after my third watch. Then this next double bill I've kind of mentioned many times on my channel in the past year or so. So we have the Archer's film, The Red Shoes, and then we have the Borsegi film, I've Always Loved You. So this is a very obvious double bill if you have seen both of the films. The Red Shoes is of course the more famous film that I think probably most of you who are watching this video have seen, but then probably most of you haven't seen this one. But this film is basically just a classical music version of The Red Shoes. Yeah, in both films we have these kind of controlling teachers or maestros, and then we have a younger woman trying to fulfill her dream. Here it's being a concert pianist for classical music, and here it is to be a ballet dancer. Yeah, and of course this came out around the same time. I've Always Loved You actually came out a couple of years before The Red Shoes, and these are both like among the best 40s films in my opinion. But I think both of these films also tackle very similar themes like whether you choose love or art, or whether you can mix them mix the two together in your life, that whether they can coexist in your life. Both of these films have that. And I think they have that gender relations element there as well. Also, I've Always Loved You especially has that exploration of toxic masculinity, but I think The Red Shoes has that a little bit as well, but maybe not as much as I've Always Loved You. Both films have very beautiful visuals, although obviously Red Shoes is pretty much unbeatable in terms of the visuals, so I think the Forsake film isn't quite as beautiful as this in terms of the aesthetic, but I think both of them are absolutely stunning in terms of the aesthetic. And yeah, I really need to do this double bill myself at some point. I really love both of these films. This might be even my top two films of the 40s, of course, although, and I mean, Late Spring and Bicycle Thieves are up there for me, and Letter from an Unknown Woman, but yeah, these are some of the best of the 40s. And this one you can watch on YouTube on 1080p if you want. So I try to recommend this very often because I think it's such a great film. Yeah. But let's move on to the next double bill. So next we have a double bill of Akira Kurosawa's Derzu Uzala and Mikhail Kalatozov's Letter Never Sent. So both of these films were made in the Soviet Union, although obviously Derzu Uzala is by a Japanese filmmaker, so it was kind of a co-production of with Japan and the Soviet Union, I guess. But the reason I think this would be a great double bill is because these both kind of explore the theme of like man versus nature, although in a very different way. So here we have again this man who loves to live in the forests, but then at a point he has to go to the city, and then we see that kind of battle of, like you say, tradition and modernity, and also again nature versus that kind of more modern city life. And we also see how hard it is for a person to kind of change his ways, so he never gets used to the city life. He starts to miss the nature. And I think to me this is one of Kurosawa's most deep films. I think it can covers those very universal themes that are very interesting to think about. And thus, I also think it's one of Kurosawa's best films, actually, even though it's not often maybe mentioned in that conversation when people just obsess about Seven Samurai all the time. But yeah, this is such a great movie. Yeah. But then Letter Never End, again, it's about these again people who are in the Siberian forests, and there is a fire there, and it becomes a tale of survival, again, man versus nature. So it has that man and nature element in a very different way. When there's Uzala, the nature is kind of a, you could say, a positive thing and something that a good place for people, or at least some people. But in Letter Never End, it becomes almost like a prison due to the fires, and that you just have to survive no matter what. And this has a very different type of cinematography. There's Uzala is a color film, and this is a black and white film, one of the most beautiful black and white films, by the way. Yeah, and of course the plots are very different, but also there are enough similarities between these two films that I think it could be a very rewarding double bill. Yeah, both films just are very powerful experiences, and both films leave you with a sense of awe. I think Letter Never End, especially. I think Derzu is maybe a bit more. It has that kind of more of a emotional element to it, but this has more of a kind of awe-inspiring element to it, you could say. Yeah, but definitely highly recommend both of these films. And this is always on great quality on YouTube if you want to watch it, and it's also on Criterion channel and on Criterion Blu-ray if you want to watch it that way. But this to me is one of the best films of all time. The same could be said with There's Uzala. Both are just absolutely amazing films. Yeah. Then the next double bill is the Discarnates from Nobuhiko Obayashi and Andrew Haig's All of Us Strangers, a very recent film. So the reason I picked these is because they are based on the same novel. It's a Japanese novel. I don't off the top of my head remember what it was called, and I have not read it. And I actually watched All of Us Strangers first, even though it's the more recent film. But the Discarnates I watched like a few months ago. Yeah, I really enjoy both of these films. So it's about all of these films are about an adult man whose parents died like a long time ago, but then he has the chance to meet his parents again when he's older, even though the parents are still the same age. So it has that very interesting dynamic there that you are kind of around the same age as your parents. Yeah. But then, of course, in both films, this dynamic cannot last forever. So there's kind of a time limit to that how long you can be with your parents that way. Yeah. But I would assume that the Discarnates is probably a more faithful adaptation because it's obviously a Japanese film. And also All of Us Strangers has lots of kind of personal elements from Andrew Haig's life because it's about a gay man and Andrew Haig is gay as well. And it's kind of has all of those like all of that music from his childhood that he liked, like Pet Shop Boys and Frankie Goes to Hollywood and stuff like that. But I would say I like All of Us Strangers more, even though I like both of the films. But I like this more because it's also for me more of a personal experience than the Discarnates, even though the Discarnates was something that made me really emotional as well. And of course, Obayashi is the latest addition to my favorite directors list, as I've completely fallen in love with his work and his style. Yeah. But this is basically like a gay version of the Discarnates story. That's kind of the main difference there, I would say. But of course, visually they are very different. This is like has like that very contemporary look to it, although this to me looks way better than the average movie that is coming out these days. I like the kind of color grading here and stuff more than the type of color grading that we have usually. And both of the films have also very hypnotic elements to them. Both films also have very strong performances, I would say. And again, both of the films made me very emotional as well. And I think the story from the novel is just so beautiful. I really need to read the novel as well. But yeah, I'm a big fan of both of these directors. And I think the connection, why this would be a good double bill, is very kind of easy and easy to understand here. And it's very, very obvious. Yeah. But definitely check out both of these films. I mean, this should be very easy to find as it is quite a popular film, so it should be available absolutely everywhere. But the Discarnates is available, I think, in the Internet Archive website and maybe in the Rare Film website. I don't remember which one I watched it on. But definitely check out these films. And I'm planning to recommend some Obayashi for the podcast in the spring, but it won't be this one. Yeah. Then the last double bill is a anime TV show double bill. So we have two very popular animes. So we have Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood, which I actually just rewatched on January. I had first watched it like back in August last year, so I already rewatched it like less than half a year later because I just fell in love with the story to such large degree. But then we have Attack on Titan here. Oh, this is actually the uh, like a live action version, which I haven't seen, but as Attack on Titan is a bit of a longer show, there the letterbox doesn't have a page for it, so I just put a random Attack on Titan movie here. But this is meaning the whole series, all the 4 seasons of the show, and not the live action one. I mean, I'm not that interested in watching this. This is probably like really awful. Yeah. But anyway, I think the reason why I chose these is that they tackle very similar themes, and I'm pretty sure that Full Metal Alchemist probably influenced Attack on Titan a lot. Again, they both have that kind of nice mystery element to them that if you haven't been spoiled the stories, it's a very rewarding watch to go from beginning to end because you find out about all the details in just gradually and bit by bit, and it's just so much fun to keep guessing during your journey that, oh, what are these people here, who are they, and where is this story going, and things like that. So in Full Metal Alchemist, like who is the father of the Elric brothers, and because he kind of has a doppelganger in the show, I kind of don't want to spoil too much, but there is an element there that you are trying to, or you are theorizing in your mind that who are them and what are their intentions and things like that. And then on Attack on Titan, we of course think that who are the Titans or what they are, and who are the villains of the story actually, and things like that. So these both have that type of element. And on Attack on Titan, there's also the element that is there a place beyond the walls? I mean, of course, there's a bit of that. Of course, the scouts go beyond the walls, but is there like a larger world out there still left, or is there not? So there are those types of questions that you have early on the show, and then you gradually learn that what the worlds are like. And then thematically, both of these shows explore the cycles of violence, how hatred breeds more hatred, which is obviously a theme that so many pieces of art have tackled, but those themes are very important to go back to as those are some of the biggest flaws of humanity that we never learn from violence, we never learn from those cycles of violence and war. Yeah, we can never find peace in this world, and we always, or not always, but often choose hatred before love. So yeah, that's a big flaw to humanity, and we always think that we are something grander than we actually are. And I think both of these shows have a bit of that element there, especially Full Metal Alchemist. They also both of them explore genocide, xenophobia as well, which are of course very dark themes, but both of these shows also have some more humorous elements to them and more hopeful and optimistic parts to them. Although I would say Fullmetal Alchemist is way more hopeful and optimistic than Attack on Titan. Yeah, even though both shows again are very dark at places, but I think Fullmetal Alchemist has bit of a more optimistic and hopeful message than Attack on Titan. But I think both the more optimistic and more dark approaches work really well. Of course, the shows are around the same length as well. Fullmetal Alchemist is a bit over 60 episodes, and Attack on Titan is over 70. So it's bit Attack on Titan is a bit longer, and it also has the last couple of episodes are over an hour long. Yeah, and both shows have amazing animation, and both shows are just like good examples of something where that work really well as just pure entertainment based on the great characters and the great story. But both of these shows have also more contemplative elements to them, and both shows have very deep themes if you want to think about them. Although again, both shows just work as pure entertainment as well. But I like both the elements, the very action-packed stories, the beautifully animated action scenes, but then I also love the themes and the character moments and things like that. I would say now that Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood is maybe slightly better than Attack on Titan. I think mostly because Fullmetal Alchemist to me has better characters because Attack on Titan actually I think it has great characters and interesting characters, but the main character Eren, for example, I really disliked him from start to finish, and he has a very interesting character arc where he changes a lot throughout the show, but he kind of was something that I found annoying. But that's kind of a testament to the show that I absolutely love Attack on Titan, the story, even though I kind of dislike the main character. So, but I think in Full Metal Alchemist, I don't really dislike any of the characters. The villains are great, and the heroes are great, and the heroes are very flawed as well. That we saw how their actions lead to awful consequences, and then they also realize that during the show and that they might have to change change their behavior, change their mindset so that these bad things wouldn't happen in the future. So it's great in that way. The character development, the characterization is so great in this show, but also in Attack on Titan because there we also have great character development. But these are just some of the best anime shows of all time, and I think if you haven't really watched any anime shows before, I think both of these shows would be very good watches as your first or among your first shows. Yeah, but those were all the double bills. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of these films or those two anime shows or the mangas if you have read them. And you can let me know any good double bills that you have in mind. And you can also check the first part of this video that I made like over a year ago, and maybe I'll do a second or third part to this. And I was thinking that maybe I should do a TV show special, that TV show double bills. I can think of at least few of them. But anyway, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts. Don't drink Coca-Cola, sayonara, and arigato gozaimashita.